This episode of The Therapy Show is sponsored by Therapy Notes. Why not find out what more than 100,000 mental health professionals already know and try Therapy Notes for 2 months absolutely free? Just click on the link in the show notes or enter promo code LISA at therapynotes.com. Welcome to the Therapy Show podcast. I'm your host, Lisa Mustard. In each episode, I interview a seasoned and knowledgeable talk therapist from the counseling world to glean valuable insights, techniques, and tools that you can apply to your practice and your life. And if you're considering a career in the counseling field or just want to hear about what it's like to be a talk therapist, then this is the podcast for you. We're doing something a little different on this week's episode. I'm calling it a reverse interview. So instead of me interviewing a therapist, I'm the one being interviewed. And recently, I had the pleasure of being on my friend Chris McDonald's podcast, the Holistic Counseling Podcast, where we talked about navigating aging in midlife with ease. She is such a great host and interviewer that I asked if I could take the interview and add it to my episodes. So in this episode this week, Chris is the host and I'm the guest. And Chris just recently joined the PsychCraft network of podcasters. So if you haven't already checked out her show, you won't be disappointed if holistic counseling and modalities are of interest to you. And if you're interested in adding holistic treatments and modalities to your practice, be sure to check out Chris's holistic counseling trainings. Plus, you can earn continuing education contact hours for them. So click the link in the show notes to see the courses and learn all about them. But one more thing before we dive into this episode, don't forget, I'm co-hosting a free webinar on May 11th with Dr. David Hall of Psych Maven, where we will be sharing the 3 secrets to your first CE event. It's easier than you think. The link to register is www.lisa.mavenwebinar.com. Of course, that link is in the show notes. But in this webinar, you will get to hear about the journey of getting into the CE business, 3 secrets to quick start your own CE event, false beliefs that keep you from offering CE trainings, and then a live Q&A along with some limited bonuses and discounts for an upcoming training that we will be offering. And for those of you who go through the full webinar, we have some exclusive bonuses, including our tip sheet to profitable CE planning, a copy of the slides, along with the time for Q&A. And don't worry if you can't make it live to the training. Go ahead and register for the training and we'll send you the replay. And once again, that website is lisa.mavenwebinar.com and the link to register can be found in the show notes. Okay, so let's dive into the interview with me.
When you think about life at midlife, what comes to mind? Does it bring up fear, dread? Most of us have fears of aging, and sometimes we struggle to accept the process. It can be hard to accept changes in our bodies, as well as the mental impact of aging. In today's episode, we'll be looking at how we can reframe the whole experience to navigate aging with ease. Stay tuned. Hey there, and welcome to today's episode of the Holistic Counseling Podcast. Midlife can be a challenging transitional time. At midlife, we deal with lots of changes in our bodies, including weight gain, low energy. Emotionally, you may have worries about the future, retirement. Today's guest is here to talk about midlife and how to bring more ease into this transition. Lisa Mustard is an LMFT, host of the podcast The Therapy Show, and a coach. But before we jump in, do you struggle with creating time for yourself? You're not alone. Many counselors find it difficult to find time for self-care practices. My book, Self-Care for the Counselor, was written for you. It's jam-packed with holistic strategies to help you find the balance you need and the energy you're looking for. So stay tuned at the end of the episode on how to access this book. Welcome to the podcast, Lisa.
Hey, Chris, thanks so much for having me. I am excited to be here. Can't wait to talk about this topic with you.
So can you share more about yourself and your work?
Sure. Gosh, rein me in if I go on for too long. But like you said, I am a licensed marriage and family therapist. I live in South Carolina. I am also a mom and a wife, and I'm about to be 50 this year. And about 10 years ago, I had my own midlife. I wouldn't necessarily call it a crisis, but I would call it more like I call it the midlife meh. Like I just kind of hit this point in my life where everything was good. Like life was good. My work was good. My marriage was good. Things with my kids were good, but I felt kind of just unfulfilled and unhappy and just unsure of if I was doing what I was put here on this planet to do. And so I started to think about that. And I got real intentional on figuring it out at 40, how I wanted to show up in my 40s. And I think that's something that a lot of women go through. I mean, men too, for sure. But my expertise, I will say, is with women because that's what I am and that's my experience. And for some women, it shows up earlier, maybe like 35, 36. And then for some, it shows up later, maybe as they are getting, closer to 50. And that can be for a number of reasons. So yeah, that's kind of my story in a nutshell.
So what is it about midlife that people start really reflecting? Is there something about this time in our lives that might bring us to more of that reflection and maybe overthinking where we are, where we're going?
Yeah. I mean, I would agree that at that time in our lives, we do start to question things and we start to think about things. Now, I haven't done any like formal research on this.
It's okay.
I don't have any like studies to point people to.
We want to hear from you.
Yeah. I mean, I just know and I'll say for those of us that have children and want to be married, a lot of that focus in our 20s is spent looking for that person that we want to partner up with and procreate with. And we're also thinking about our careers. But we're also just kind of thinking that those are our next steps. And for me, it was kind of like once I kind of got all that stuff and are all lined up, everything was just great. It was moving along. I was happy. And then in my 30s, started to kind of feel it that maybe I was meant to do more. But I do think it's some type of existential situation. I don't necessarily agree. Crisis, but for some people, it's a situation that we can't shake. And I think we need to pay attention to that. Anytime we have an existential situation in our lives, we should pay attention to it. But for me, the first one I had probably was in my late 20s. And then, my second one was in my late 30s as I was hitting 40. But I do think that we go through these things and it's normal. I mean, I think we're humans.
And I think that's important to mention that all of these are normal, to think about I call them the big zero birthdays, right? 40 and 50. A lot of people are like, whoa, what have I done with my life?
Yeah.
Where am I going? And for me, it was like, have I reached the goals I've set? Oh man, I'm 50 now. I have not.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I'm kind of going through that too. 40 was one thing. It was more of a, what type of career or work do I want to be doing? Sure. Am I fulfilled in my career? Am I doing what I want to be doing? And then as I made the decision that, hey, I have more in me to offer, which is really, when I started the podcast in, I want to say 2019. So I was in my 40s. I mean, it's well into my 40s, but it took me kind of trying a couple things and failing at them. And I say failing as in they just weren't for me. So I tried, maybe I should go in private practice. It is not for me. I tried, well, maybe I want to go back into being like in the personal training world, and not really for me, because I did that in my 20s and it's just not where I wanted to be. Really came back to, I still love being a therapist and I love doing this work, but I wanted to pivot a little bit with my skills and do it differently. And I think that's kind of the cool thing about midlife is you've acquired all of these skills, you've acquired all these experiences, and we should, I think, pay attention to them and learn from them and make meaning with them. And if it's time to do something new and different, we'll give it a go.
I think that's part of it too. It's like for me, it was like looking on the horizon above. It's like, man, I have fewer years left than when I was in my 20s. And you can't procrastinate, I feel like, because it's like, oh man, retirement could come up sooner than I think. And oh boy, so what am I going to do to spend my time? And I guess for me, it's like priority shift. Well, how do I want to spend my time?
Exactly. Yeah. And that's the big part of my shift when I realized that what you said of you realize you have less years on this earth than you used to, like that'll wake you up. Like
serious.
That'll keep you up at night too, not just wake you up, but it'll keep you up. And I think that's where a lot of our midlife stuff comes from. It's just, what do we want to do? And you're right. I mean, retirement, when you're in your 20s and you're figuring out your career and you're thinking, oh, it's so far away. But you get into it and you're churning along, you're moving along. And the next thing you know, you're like, no, really, it's going to be here before you know it. So yeah, it was a big aha moment for me. And like you said, it sounded like you were working within your priorities. You got real clear on them. And that's the first thing that I will suggest is to anybody going through this is to get really clear on what are your priorities or what are your highest values. And are you living them congruently and authentically? Because I don't know if we pay attention to that too much because we're so busy in the busyness of day to day.
Yeah, true. It's definitely food for thought. And I think for me too, it's the seeing over the horizon that, wow, what does that mean to actually qualify for a senior discount? Like years and AARP and what does all this mean? Isn't it almost like a meaning and purpose thing with life? And why are we here? The existential part, I think, keeps coming back.
Yeah. I mean, I remember when my mom got the AARP magazine in the mail and I was like, God, you're old, and here I am. I'm starting to get the emails and they're showing up in my inbox. And I'm like, wait, no, that's me. Like that's me now. It's just weird.
It is.
But it happens. And it's like my husband said, it's better than the alternative.
Amen. So, yeah, exactly. So I guess from your experience, what are some other psychological impacts of aging or what have you noticed?
Yeah. Well, for me, I speak from experience and just from the other women that I've worked with and talked with. Definitely one of the things that come up is, your body starts to change. And that's kind of a hard pill to swallow for a lot, depending on, the view and the value you place on your aesthetics and your figure. But at the same time, it also can be very freeing too. It's like, well, I keep reminding myself, well, this is better than the alternative, right? So, okay, this is what I got to work with. So let me just do the best I can with what I have. And I think like a lot of my peers, and I don't know if you went through this or not, but not the pressure, but like the temptation maybe to inject and pull and I don't even know what the words are, to change and to like to try to make yourself look maybe younger is kind of there because it's hard to see the lines show up. It's hard to see the gray hairs coming in. Like I just got my hair done this past weekend, so I'm feeling very confident. Yeah,
you can't see my roots in the video.
No, all right, yeah. So I think there's definitely coming to terms with the aging process and the physical aging process. I went to the podiatrist for the first time last week because I was like, why does my foot hurt? Like what's going on? I didn't have that problem, 10 years ago. And just taking care of yourself the best that you can. And if that's going to look different for everybody, for me, I know personally that means having a really good sleep schedule, working hard to get my water and just doing all the things that I can to feel good. I'm taking my vitamins. Like I said, getting that sleep, keeping my stress down, getting in the exercise, feeding myself high quality nutrition because we're all going to age. Like it's inevitable. It's happening. It's happening every day. We're a day older. Our cells are a day older, but that doesn't mean that you have to mourn that. Maybe you do have to mourn it, but you have to find a joy in it too. Because you still got plenty of time left.
Thanks for the reassurance.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Life doesn't end at 40 or 50.
No, in fact, I feel like it gets better.
Yeah.
I feel like I don't care anymore what people think. I used to care so much 10 years ago. I really don't. I don't know. That's a very confident thing to say, maybe. I just feel it in my bones. And I think a lot of it has to do with life experiences and learning from failures and learning from things that you would call mistakes and pivoting and trying new things and realizing that there's still so much more out there to explore and to learn about yourself. I think that's really cool. I don't think that ever ends.
Yeah, the learning, I guess that's true. And and I'm thinking about other cultures like in the US that we don't value aging and everything is about youth and appearance and all the social media and how good you can look. And I think that when you compare yourself to some of the society standard, of course, you're going to feel some of that effects and, that can affect you emotionally too. But for me, I'm trying to get to that place of acceptance, but it's hard.
Yeah.
Especially with gaining weight easier. You can't eat the same way that you used to eat in your 20s. That's what I've learned with aging for sure.
Yeah. And I look at my girls, and I look at what they eat and I'm always like, ugh. Like I remember being that age and being able to eat, all the pizza and drink all the soda.
Yep.
My skin paid for it, but it is different. One of the things that I am so thankful that I started back in my 20s, but you can pick it up at any point, is strength training. And I really feel like I call it the fountain of youth. And I'm not here to sell anybody on a strength training program. Like it's not,
you're not selling one today.
I don't have an affiliate, but I really believe that it's just so good for all the different systems in your body. And one of the things that we lose as we get older is muscle mass. And I think that, and you can start lifting weights today, and see the benefit of, what it's going to do for you, adding muscle, what it does for your metabolic rate, what it does for just all your systems. It's just, I'm so grateful that I started back in my 20s. And that's something that I recommend that women start doing sooner than later, because you'll be so grateful. And not just like in a physique type of way or a metabolic type of way, but your balance and your coordination, because those things definitely, as we age, they're going to slow down a little bit. And stretching is so important as well. And I know that with what you teach and what you do, just the amount of good things that does for your body and your brain. But so I encourage women to get on a strength training program, whatever, about 3 days a week of strength training is what you need. You don't need to go to 6 or 5, really 3 days of total body work is what they're showing now is just fine. So I think it's really important. And then also, getting enough protein is really important. And a lot of women think that 40 grams of protein is enough. And really, if you're going to be lifting weights and trying to add muscle, you need, depending on a lot of things. And I aim for about a gram a day per body weight. So if I weigh 118, I'm shooting for 118 grams of protein. And
that's a lot.
It is, but I'm so used to it now that it really doesn't feel like a lot. Try Therapy Notes, the #1 rated electronic health record system available today. With live telephone support 7 days a week, it's clear why Therapy Notes is rated 4.9 out of 5 stars on Trustpilot.com and Google. Therapy Notes makes billing, scheduling, note-taking, and telehealth incredibly easy. And now, for all you prescribers out there, Therapy Notes is proudly introducing ePrescribe. And if you're coming from another electronic health record, Therapy Notes makes the transition quite simple, importing your demographic data free of charge so you can get going right away. So why not find out what more than 100,000 mental health professionals already know and try Therapy Notes for 2 months absolutely free. Just click on the link in the show notes or enter the promo code Lisa at therapynotes.com. Try it today with no strings attached and see why everyone is switching to Therapy Notes.
So were you a personal trainer that you said before?
I was, yeah. Many moons ago. 20 some years ago. 25 years ago. I can say that now. Almost. So yeah. And then kind of going back to the priorities and values. And I don't think that's something that we talk about enough with maybe our clients or within our, friend groups or even with our partners, but it's just knowing what's important to us and how do we show up in our values every day. And I really didn't know much about values work until my late 30s, early 40s. And knowing what my values are helped me every day stay true to my goals. And I think that's really important for people to know what they stand for. And it doesn't have to be like I stand for, and I work for a military branch. And so I used to do this exercise with the groups that I would run. And I'd ask the soldiers, what are your values? And they always gave like integrity and honesty and honor. And I was like, yeah, valor. It's like, yeah. Like you're a soldier, you got to say that. But let's talk about you when you take the uniform off and it's you, not Sergeant so-and-so, but you, Joe Smith, who also does X, Y, and Z. Like what is important to you in your life? And how do you structure your time? And how do you structure your priorities? And what does that look like? And they were just looking at me like, I don't know. How do you do that? How do you figure those things out? I don't know. Do you have a list of like your highest values?
Well, I know one thing that I've been working on too is I value some downtime because sometimes my problem is overscheduling and then I'm introverted. So I need some time to decompress and breathe. And this past weekend was beautiful. I had no plans and it was wonderful because the problem I have is, oh yeah, let me do that. That sounds fun. And then I'm like, oh my God, I'm not even rested and it's Monday morning. So that's something that I'm trying to really be mindful of. And before I accept an invite from someone, I'm like, wait, let me see what else is on my calendar. Do I need a day of rest? Do I need time off that weekend? So I'm trying to really make that an important part of what I do as far as, scheduling with family, saying no more to family if there's something coming up, because my mental health is so impacted if I am overscheduled. That's something I've been really, really working hard on. And of course, setting boundaries is something that's a skill too, that I think is so important for women. We can all get caught up in, saying yes for things we don't really want to do.
Oh, totally. I mean, everything you just said, it's interesting when you were sharing your priorities and your values. I was like, of course, trying to parallel process over here, like what mine are. And it's interesting how you framed it, because the self-care value, I say that, but I don't practice it. And when you were just kind of giving examples of what that looked like, I was like, yeah, that's it. Like that's my issue is I say I do self-care and I do all the things that I enjoy, like, go to the gym or go on a walk or, make healthy food. But the time alone to rest and recover
It's huge.
Is huge. And that is something that I took and I have kids, so my life is a little bit different. And my kids, they can't drive yet, so we have to take them everywhere. But like that's something that I have to like put limits on, because I could easily say, okay, I'll take you there, because I enjoy doing some of the things that they do too. But yesterday I was like, I'm not going there. Like, we're not getting in the car anymore today, and I'm going to go in the room, close the door,
Yes.
leave me alone. And I don't do that enough,
Yeah.
And so I think there's some pride in there, or some mom guilt in there, that I don't necessarily want to do that, because I don't want to feel that way or but blah, blah, blah. Like, no,
let it go.
Yeah. Like some of the other values that it sounds like you hold too is family. Like I hold my family, and I say family focus, family first. If it doesn't fit within the framework that we have set up for how we want to parent and how we want to, be as a family, then I say no, because that comes first, like raising our kids the way that we feel is best. So that's important. Family. I know I said health is really important for me. It's not just for me, a value, but it's for my husband. We want to live long and strong and healthy lives, and we want to be around as long as possible. So we're very mindful about how much what we eat and like getting our sleep, and we're very much sticklers for those types of things. But if I get out of whack with those values, I'm a really crappy person to be around, and I know that about myself.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. That.
Other values that I think fun, joy, laughter are really important. I have to have that in my day or my week, schedule time for that, to enjoy things and have a little bit of fun. And even if that's just going outside and hitting the volleyball with the girls, or, reading a fun book or watching a fun show on TV. I say fun, like entertaining. I'm trying to think what other values, at this point. And part of the reason I started the podcast, and I'm going to throw it out there and say maybe part of the reason you started your podcast and, therapists listening, was we value time flexibility and some time freedom. So being able to create the podcast and not have to, creating this other way to make an impact and help people is huge. And to help our therapist friends, in their journeys, like to me, that I love that. Having a podcast gives me time flexibility. So I don't have to do that so much one-on-one anymore. I can do it to a bigger audience. So I think that's really something special that we have. And I hope more therapists out there, if they desire time flexibility and eventually maybe some, financial flexibility, if they're looking for other streams of revenue, to consider this as one of them.
And midlife can be a time to think about these things, and where do you want to go? And are you happy where you are? And it's okay to pivot. You said you pivoted when you were like 40, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yes. When I was like, I don't really want to be doing this for the rest of my life, but I didn't want to leave the field. So I struggled for a couple of years. Like, well, what does that look like? Thankfully, I had some, like my jobs where I've always worked for a military branch, but I had some wiggle room in terms of like different positions. So it's been an interesting evolution, but I got to a point where I was like, okay, I kind of hit the glass ceiling with my role in my job. And so I was kind of feeling stuck. And that's when a reprioritizing of my values is like, okay, well, what else can I do over here in this area of making an impact? Because, another one of my values is creatively making a difference. And so I was like, okay, creative. Like, I don't paint. I don't draw. I don't make music. No, I don't make music. Like, I don't dance. I don't do any of those things, but I like podcasting. And so for me, this became my creative outlet. And I'm so glad, I'm so glad I took the chance and went with it, because I feel like going into 50, it's just so grateful to have this.
And it can be taking a chance, can it? Mm-hmm. So if any listeners are thinking about, gee, I've always wanted to, whatever it is, just go for it.
Yeah.
It is. And of course, doing a podcast is a risk. You're putting it out there. It's taking a brave step. I mean, I wrote a book, and when I published that, it felt like I don't have children, but if I did, it felt like I was releasing a child into the world, because it's like you put your heart and soul into something, and it's like, oh my God, what is going to happen with this? And it is nerve-wracking. Yeah.
You've done so much. You've written a book, you have your podcast, now you have your courses. Like, I am so inspired. I'm like, okay.
And then I feel like sometimes that little voice, am I doing enough? Is it enough?
I totally get that. Yeah. It's like, how do you know when it's enough?
It's enough. Right. Yeah. And I'm glad English pivoting back to the creativity. I think that's something I value too, because yesterday I did some of my art, and for me, if I don't have that creative outlet, I'm just not a good person either. I just have to have some way to get that out. But I think podcasting is one way to do that too, to be creative and with different kinds of topics and ways to help therapists too. So that's something that I'm passionate about.
Yeah. What kind of art do you do?
It's called diamond painting. Have you heard of this?
No.
It's like they're called drills. It's basically like paint by numbers, but with little dots.
Okay.
And you just put it's thoughtless. There's no thought involved, which I love.
I think my daughter has one of those.
Yes. It gets me out of my head, and I can just be present, and seems very strange of an activity, but it really just kind of centers me, and I zone out and just don't have to worry about solving someone else's problem.
Yeah, I can totally get that. So over the pandemic, when our girls were home doing school, they would be doing schoolwork, and when I wasn't working, I would go in the back of the house and do a puzzle. And that was like the most calming, centering thing for me, just to focus on a puzzle. I don't know, I guess because it wasn't work, it wasn't dealing with kids, or puzzles do that for me. So I love
and I think it is based on too, if you're more introverted, extroverted, like that's an introverted kind of activity, because I'm by myself, might listen to music. So for listeners to figure out what is something that maybe matches where you are and who you are, if you're more introverted or both. I have to be social too. I have to have some social to see people, but then I need alone time. So I kind of have that yin and yang.
Totally the same way. I like both. Both and.
Yes,
I like to say.
Exactly. I heard you talking about, it sound like some positive things that you've noticed with midlife. So I wonder if there's a good big question too for listeners to think about. So what have I gained in my life at the age I'm at now? What are the positive aspects, if that's something to think about,
Yeah, that's a really good question. I like that question, because I feel like I'm always, as therapists, well, at least for me, I am always paying attention to how I respond and react to things going on in my house and in my head and at my job. I think I've learned to be a little bit more patient with myself. I've learned that, gosh, I don't have to have a reaction to everything. I've learned that I don't have to have an opinion about certain things. I think one of the things I'm working on the most is I want to just meet people where they are, for them just being a human being, not so much their opinions or their belief systems, but we're all connected. And I want to just honor that in other people. Like, I just want to show up and be me and just love people. I don't know how that just sounds kind of weird, but because it's not like I'm meeting people at the grocery store and I'm running up to them and hugging them, just having more patience and being a little bit more kind and not being so in a rush, and giving somebody a compliment or saying hello to little kids, or, I just want to do that. I don't know what that means, but I think that's more about, I'm comfortable with myself. So I want to be able to, give that to other people. I think the acceptance around the aging process, I'm not quite sure, like if it's ever going to get any easier, but I just, from like my husband says, it's better than the alternative. And I have to
have a mantra.
That. Yeah. I would say that I'm a lot more patient with my husband in our marriage, in our relationship. I think the harder parts for me, kind of pivoting, the hard parts are parenting and not letting my own attachment stuff from my childhood, get in the way of parenting our children, because that can easily trip me up if I'm not aware and I'm not paying attention to my initial reaction to things, because I can easily go to that place of I'm 9 and my dad just left, and how do I feel? Like that can, attachment stuff can like really get me pretty quick. And I credit mindfulness practices with, being more in tune with the moment and like, okay, I just felt something. What was that? It's not about her. That's about me. That's where I am at 50, is just trying to not let that stuff cloud my parenting. And it's tough, it can be tough.
Oh, yeah, I imagine so.
But it's okay. I mean, I guess I don't beat myself up about it too much. I just try to do better, parent the best I can. But yeah, that's probably, what about for you? I'm curious.
This is like two people interview.
Turning it around on
the
you.
podcasters.
But I want to know.
Yes.
I really want to know.
No, I know. I think that I'm more confident. The word that comes to mind is confident, because I would not go back to my teenage years or my 20s for anything in the world, $1 million. No, because I feel like over the years, it's just, I've grown and grown with my confidence and know who I am and what I want, and more emotionally regulated than I've ever been in my life. The past 5 years that I've been doing yoga every day, meditation,
awesome.
Adding those practices, I'm much much less reactive. That's what I've gained. I wish I had found it earlier, but that's okay. But I think just being more present because of that, is so important. And like you said, not caring what people think. I'm more likely to confront people personally. I used to really run from any kind of conflict, and professionally with clients. I'm just like, did you hear what you just said?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Let's talk about, and I never used to do that, but for some reason, this is, as I've gotten older, I'm just like, I'm going to call you out. And I tell that clients up front now, I'm like, there's going to come a point where we get going that I will call you out. I just want to let you know. And they're like, oh, okay. Thank you. I want to be called out. So that feels good. But I think that comes from a confident place, just feeling, I know my skills. I know where I am. I know where I'm going, mostly not 100% all the time, but have some direction. And that's a good feeling. Like when I was in my 20s, it was just like, okay, I'm learning counseling. I'm not sure what I'm doing, but I didn't really think too far ahead. And retirement, that was a long ways away.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. No, I totally get all of those things too. Yeah. And I think I can relate on the being more direct with clients. And it's funny because it's like, I'm saying this, it's like almost like, I'm going to say this for your own good. Like, I'm just going to tell you right now, that ain't going to work. Like, it's not going to work. You're rationalizing this behavior. And it is. And I think that kind of makes it more fun in a way, like being more free and having, of course, being appropriate and within the relationship, if it makes sense. If it doesn't make sense, of course, wouldn't do it. But, and I love that you said that you're the most calm and less emotionally reactive you've been. And you credit that, you said, to yoga and mindfulness.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm going to keep at it then, because
every day, Lisa, do some yoga. And now I sometimes will do more than once a day, because I usually do part of my morning routine, but during the day. And sometimes I just like, I feel like doing a downward dog.
Yeah.
In between a session, because it just helps my back too. I have back issues. So I have to move. If I don't move, I'm in big trouble. So for me, it accomplishes, the emotional, but then the physical side for me too.
Yeah, I know I told you that I'm not very good at the yoga thing, but if I can reframe it as, stretching for health and wellness, then I'm more apt to do it. So I've been thinking, it's funny, I think about you when I go to the gym now, because I'm like, I'm stretching and I'm doing, like, you have imprinted on me, Chris. So
see, we're going to get you doing yoga. I'll send you my YouTube channel.
Okay. Yeah, send me your YouTube channel. I will definitely check it out.
So if any listeners want to check it out, I create it for both clients and for therapists in my Facebook group, the Holistic Counseling Self-Care group. So I just have, it's not fancy video, I'm going to warn you, but that's okay. That's where I put a lot of things. So skills, so people can learn and practice. Because sometimes if you just verbally tell somebody, like in session, and we do it together, they won't remember. So, but yeah, it's more of that slow, mindful movement. So
you have a group? A holistic counseling group? How did I not know that?
Yeah, okay. Facebook group. Yep.
And is that for people who are interested in holistic counseling?
Yes.
Cool.
No, it's for therapists. Therapists and
I need to join.
And self-care too. So we kind of go both. So, but yeah, it's a really supportive, wonderful group. Got lots of great people in there, and so far, knock on wood, drama free.
Yeah. Well, maybe that's a podcast episode that I could have you come back on my show and talk about, is, creating a group and the intentions behind all that. Because that's something that I've dabbled with in the past, but it overwhelms me to think about. Yeah. And I'm sure lots of other therapists out there are thinking the same thing. Like, I would love to have a group, but there's a lot, I imagine, that goes into kind of.
Yeah, that would definitely be a good episode. I have a lot to say on that.
It's coming, y'all. We will get that together.
Yes, we'll get that for you. Yes. Well, Lisa, this has been great. I feel like we both learned so much from each other.
Yeah. I'm so glad we connected. Thanks for having me on your show.
Yeah. And one more question. So if you could go back in time, what would you tell your younger self that you know now?
Oh, gosh. What would I tell my younger self? That is such a good question. Probably, I would say, trust yourself more. trust your gut, trust your instincts, trust what you're feeling, not so much trust what people around you are telling you should do. I hope that makes sense. But
yeah, that does.
Just think about some situations from my past that, if I had listened to myself or to my gut, definitely life would be a lot different. But, hindsight's 2020, Chris.
Yes, I know for sure. And that's one of the benefits of aging is
Right.
that we can hopefully learn from a lot of our mistakes. But thank you so much for coming on the podcast. So could you tell my listeners more about your pod course?
Sure. So for those of you who do not know of my show, it is called The Therapy Show with Lisa Mustard, and some of my episodes are approved by NBCC for continuing education. And I am going to offer your listeners of the Holistic Counseling Podcast a free continuing education contact hour. So what you'll do is you will go to the website, which is lisamustard.com. And then you'll click on the tab that says pod courses. And there's 12 right now to choose from, a 13th one that's coming soon, but there's 12 to choose from. And when you pick one that you want to purchase, there's a space for a coupon code. And all you need to do is type in the word holistic and hit apply coupon, and you'll get a free pod course. And how it works is you listen to the content, and then afterwards you take a short little self-study quiz, fill out the evaluation, and then you can download your certificate of completion. So the coupon code is holistic. And Chris, I know you'll probably put that in the show notes.
Yes.
And then the website is lisamustard.com, and you just go and pick out your pod course. And the coupon will expire. We'll say it'll expire June 1st, just so we put a time limit to it. But yeah. And also if you go there, you can also get one at half off too. So it's like when you go to the website, you can just get one at half off when you sign up for my
Excellent.
email. Mm-hmm.
Thanks for offering that.
Oh yeah, happy to. I'm excited to give your listeners something. So thanks for having me. Well, I hope you enjoyed Chris interviewing me, which is a completely different take on the Wednesday therapy show episodes. And if you want to learn more about midlife, or if maybe you're struggling with midlife issues, feel free to reach out to me. You can reach me on my website. You can reach me on social media, and let me know how I can support you if you're dealing with midlife challenges or midlife crisis. And don't forget, if you are interested in adding holistic counseling modalities to your practice, Chris McDonald has 3 trainings on my website, which is lisamustard.com/CE courses. Click that link and you'll be taken to her new continuing education trainings that are now listed on my site. And don't forget, on May 11th, Dr. David Hall and I are co-presenting a webinar called The 3 Secrets to Your First CE Event. It's easier than you think. And you can get the link to register in the show notes, or go to lisa.mavenwebinar.com. I hope I get to see you guys there. Take care, and I'll talk to you soon. Well, that wraps up another episode of The Therapy Show with Lisa Mustard. I know there are hundreds of thousands of podcasts out there, and I'm thankful you've chosen to listen to mine.
Be sure to visit lisamustard.com to access the show notes and discover more fantastic content.
And I'd be grateful if you subscribe to the show. Thank you.